Hello and welcome to the Vast Parlor. Today I'm joined by my buddy Todd Englund from Seminal Sounds recordings. We're going to talk about music, life, all kinds of fun things, and I hope you enjoy it. Let us know down below if you have any questions, comments, like, subscribe. Be sure to check out all the links for Seminal Sound in there as well. And yeah, sit back, relax, and enjoy. So, Mr. Todd, tell us who you are, where you are, and what do you do?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Just work on music. It's part of some monthlies going on here, but it's a little grim for the clubs right now.
Sure.
And then just operate Seminal Sounds with a couple other fantastic individuals and keep stuff moving.
Sounds good. Sounds good. So how did Seminal Sounds come about as a label and as an outlet for some forward-thinking artists around drum and bass?
Sure. It's kind of funny. So one of the other co-founders for it originally had everything set up as a video blog, and he had all the branding and all the sites reserved and everything else because he does a lot of SEO and just website development. So we basically took that footprint, which he started in like 2013, and in 2015 we took that and shifted it, basically erased everything for it and kicked it up as a record label, got it registered as an LLC. So Paul Hunter here in Minneapolis, myself, and then Matt Gibson, who's in Ottawa, we're all pretty like-minded, and we all jumped on board, just kind of getting a collection of like-minded individuals pushing forward for just general success in music and helping develop people and moving that drum and bass wheel.
Sure. Now, but you were familiar with them before the label. It wasn't something that just like, oh, we have this in common.
Yeah.
The label. It was you guys. Were they all involved in the local drum and bass scene or music scene, or was it?
Yeah. So I met Paul through just local events here, and also a series that he's been putting on for years. I forget how far back it goes. I want to say it's like 2001 or 2002 or something like that, called Twin Cities Drum and Bass.
Okay.
And what he tries to do is get a spotlight focused on local drum and bass producers, and then a compilation comes on, and all of our MCs, like Hyde, Brace, Caspa, all come on there and help out with it and do bits and stuff. And then somebody, local DJ, is selected from the Twin Cities area, and they basically mix the compilation, and then it gets handed out or sold, and then local artwork is put together for it too, and shirts are developed and whatnot. So really exciting movement, and it's really like getting tied in with Paul on it. That's why I say he was like-minded. He wanted to push other people's music, and he wanted to push for the development as a whole and just bring everybody together. So right away I knew I wanted to work with Paul on this. And then Matt, our Canadian buddy, he was living here at the time, and he and I are really good friends. And he and I had also just talked about getting a record label going for a couple of years, and then finally decided to execute on that and get it rolling. And yeah, it's been an uphill battle since.
Right.
Yeah.
So was Seminal Sounds originally, because I know you were saying it was a blog and a vlog, was that in conjunction with what they were doing, and this was just a platform they were using to promote it, or was it a completely separate kind of project?
Just kind of a completely separate project. We wanted to do it, completely separate. We wanted to do it where it was all about the music and just kind of really taking forward-thinking music from forward-thinking people and really getting kind of our own sound developed and pushed out. Because I don't know, like, if you listen to a lot of the music that we've released, it's not anything that necessarily resonates on a lot of other labels that are out there. Mm-hmm. A lot of it's more like technical, like, I don't want to call it podcast music, but we're not very ultra dance floor focused. Sure. A lot of it's kind of dark and murky and a little bit more technical or halftime. So I mean, there's a platform for all types of drum and bass, but we just are in kind of this interesting little segment of it, I guess.
Sure. I'm actually gonna change some of my question I was gonna ask, because you hit on something and I just kind of, while it's in my head, I want to touch on it. So with your saying about podcast music, or not necessarily the Saturday night special, you're not worried about the 11 to 2 a.m. club night crowd. how do you think that with the current situation that we're all going through with clubs and music, and pretty much, I am also starting a Twitch show and kind of revisiting, some of the internet broadcasting that I've done over the years. Now, do you think that we're going to see the music, other than the music we are into, and like, how do you think that's going to be impacted by, literally, it could be 6 to 18 months before the music that we're making, hopefully, I know we'll get into this a little bit later, but the music that some of us are making, we're not making tunes, we're making music or art. Yeah. And if it translates to a club, cool. If it doesn't, great. Because I think that a lot of the music that is coming out right now that we're into and we share is because the platform and ingesting of the art has changed. So it's kind of built up an avenue for it to be played. So it's not club, I'm not worried about, yes, it's 160 to 180 beats per minute for some of the stuff, but it's not literally meant for a dance floor, or you're going to get clear a dance floor. How do you see labels, as a label owner and also as a fan, this impacting where the next chapter is?
That's really interesting. Are different record labels end up going to taking more risks and trying to focus on non-dance floor music? I guess we'll kind of wait and see. I feel like a lot of labels have kind of slowed down their output a little bit. I know we've been a little bit more careful. We ramped up to doing 2 releases a month after doing, slowly going from like every other month to monthly to every other week kind of format. And, we've slowed down a little bit with this because obviously people's attention are all over the place, but also to the bright side of that, a lot of people are getting their own podcasts going. A lot of people are getting their own Twitch streams going. And I hope to see some exciting stuff come out of it. It's really hard to say what direction everything's going to go, but I really hope that through all this, people get more inspiration that's not focused on, hey, just playing a track for, 40 seconds on the floor, a minute on the floor, or whatever, and then moving on. I hope to see change, but you never know.
Because I just keep looking at like I know we've talked in the past, like I've always associated drum and bass kind of with jazz. And you look at like when bebop that's when the people were at the underground cafes. But as it matured as an art, now that we're 20 plus years into this, it's not only for the smoky filled basements. There's people who are listening, when they think jazz, they think Barnes & Noble coffee shop, sipping a latte, reading the New York Times, versus the guy in Harlem in the 60s who may have been like heartbroken, and this was how he dealt with his emotions in a bunker somewhere. So I see like that parallel. And I also see with video games, when it was before, it was one player or two player battling, and the end result was to win. But now that it's become a cultural phenomenon where people are just watching and they're living in those realities, as opposed to my end result is I just want to spend time in this world. So the video games are free exploring, free building, as opposed to, there are still games, just like there's still dance floor, there's still cut and dry, 22 bars, 32, whatever, however you want to do it, music production. But then there's people who are like, oh, well, I'm not limited by dance floor anymore, so I can be free. So it's gonna be interesting to see what people listen to, because were some of the bigger names in music because of festivals and because of who people saw like at Ultra or at Neverland, or as far as like on a big, large scale in the industry, as opposed to, now that there is no Sun and Bass and there is no Outlook Festival or Rampage on a big scale.
It's I don't know. It's going to be really interesting. It's hard for me to think outside what's going to be in the clubs. Like I've always been kind of like a back channel person, just in terms of like working a little bit more broadly and trying to get, involved with podcasts or getting different ideas going around that. So I think naturally through a lot of that, most of our integration has come from online radio shows. That's one of the primary reasons why you and I met. Yeah. And not only that, like different podcasts around the world, just going and getting, music from our label, like you guys and Rob and whatnot. So it'll be really interesting to see the other side with the festival crowd and the festival type music getting sent out,
Yeah.
I just really hope that there's a lot more thoughtful music that comes out of everything versus, hey, I got to do this many releases because I'm signed to this label for X albums or EPs.
Yep.
Because I feel like the pressure for all of that is going to be changing across the board for just expectations on who's releasing how much output.
Yeah, I mean, it's in anything, it's coming from a business side outside of music. Like, it's always like reverse engineering the end consumer. So if more people, regardless if they're festival kids or just techno kids or just people who like hip hop but don't want to necessarily listen to hip hop or dubstep or whatever,
Yeah.
they're just, the way they're consuming it is different. So
Mhm.
are their needs going to change? Like, are there going to be the same people who like, I just want full energy all the time? Just like sometimes you want to listen to just the overall rawness of early Metallica, but then sometimes you may want to listen to the technical stuff of Tool but you can still get that same fix from the music, even though you're not in a mosh pit or you're not working on an Alex Gray type painting,
Yeah.
Like, it's going to be interesting. So sorry, I didn't mean to jump too far ahead. It was when you were talking about the current situation and schedules and whatnot. Like, are the people going to be
conversation?
Yeah, like I was just, because I keep thinking like, the argument of people weren't buying music as much as they were anyway. Is this going to make it? Are they going to spend even less money because the average consumer of drum and bass may be unemployed or don't have the money, but then you see the Bandcamp days where artists are like, I sold more in those 2 no fee days than I did in the last year. So are people going to support the art?
Part of me thinks, with having that message and going directly to artists, the people that are able to support obviously do. And Bandcamp is doing a really smart initiative because they're getting everybody who's on the same platform together to come buy music, and they're really being selfless about it and just waiving everything and saying, hey, this goes to XYZ. I really appreciate Bandcamp for that, but like in reality, like how many of these like record labels out there, you can't really depend on sales, and that's why so many different labels have their own club nights and get involved at these festivals we're at, because the music industry has changed so much where you need to think outside of just releasing music and developing that. So yeah, I don't know what I'm trying to say about that, but it's good to see the broader spectrum and people coming around and supporting artists on a platform that wants to support artists, I guess.
Yeah, it's a strange transformation, because before, when it was obviously different mediums and time changes, you could make money off of selling if you had a good vinyl and you had 500 plates and there was room for margin. But it's almost like now with all the digital releases, so much of it has become a loss leader, so that you can put your logo out in the world and then you can get the bookings from a DJ, you know what I mean? Like, that was the big thing. Like, hey, we can't pay you a lot for this release, but you're going to get 20 bookings because you can say I'm on these 3 or 4
exposure.
Yeah, exactly. Work for exposure. And I think that when you understand like how it all works, it's like, okay, and some people are willing to trade that and some people aren't. But I just keep thinking about like, when people talk about labels and selling and sales. I was talking to a very high profile drum and bass producer who I will not name, but it's so funny when there's this misconception from the consumer world that when people see the Beatport chart or the Red Eye chart, you might be number 1 on the Red Eye vinyl chart. You could be number 1 with 3 vinyls sold.
Yep.
Now, being number 1 doesn't mean you're selling hundreds, 50, multiple groups of 10. You might sell 10 singles in a week.
Yep.
And that'll put you at number 1. So the numbers
100%.
are, but we still have this ranking like, oh, it's number 1. It must be the best. And be like, but of the thousands of people who are DJing, only 10 people are playing it.
And then not only that, like Beatport also like segments out and they have that hype list too. And they do it by, I think, I'm not 100% sure what the algorithm is for that, but I think they do it based off how many people follow specific labels on how they get segmented. So they got their top 100, then they got their top 100 hype, and then they do the 100 releases. But it's really interesting how that clock resets on that, when a release comes out, or every week when releases are coming out. And then every year it kind of like recalculates and reshuffles everything for the top 1s, top 10s for individual labels or artists. So it's kind of a big game, and it's it is really funny to turn around and sell, 15, 20 records in a week, and all of a sudden, like, you're boom, number 32 or whatever on a chart. So like it is really funny. Like it's really easy to take that and have this big, huge image about what or idea about what success is and tie it to a number. But I don't know, another one of those kind of like rants where I think moral of the story is it's important for people to define their own success and define what they want to be remembered for, define what they want to do with their music and their product and their art. So
well said. So when it comes to drum bass, how the hell did you get into it?
Yeah.
How did you end up in it and then being a co-owner of a label and one of the driving forces behind a segment of and are all of the artists on Seminal American artists?
Except for Mnemonic One. He's out of Ireland. So North American mostly. Okay. Yeah.
I was gonna say as a driving force behind American sound, but I just was like, is that true? I'm trying to think of everyone's on there, and I don't know. I think most of them are here.
We've got a lot of forward-thinking artists, and they're doing a lot of great things. But I don't even know what constitutes as driving force in the United States drum and bass these days. It's like everything outside of Europe kind of like gets brushed over in some context a little ways, but at the same time, everybody here tends to have a really strong community and everybody works so closely together and everybody kind of is just overall collaborative. Like how many people you work with or how many people, Todd works with or Rob or Hammers. It's like all you guys are very collaborative. So I don't know. I just want to say that I think everybody's very forward moving and forward thinking with that and just helping bring everything along.
Sure.
So
how did you get?
Okay. Sorry. Ranting.
That's all right. That's okay. No.
I got into drum and bass. So back when I was 13, something like that, I saved up all my monies from my grocery store job. And I went to the music store and I saw that DJ in a box thing after my guitar broke. I was like, I'm going to move something a little bit cooler. I ended up buying a DJ in a box set with a couple Gemini turntables. And I was into Future Sound of London and Prodigy and all that, but I didn't quite know drum and bass or anything at that time.
Sure.
And I found out about a record store in downtown Minneapolis that's no longer there. It's called Let It Be Records. And in the basement, they had a dance music shop. I don't remember how I heard about it, but went in there, went into the basement, and came across this section drum and bass, and listened to a few things. And I came across Ed Rush and Optical Matrix remix of The Medicine, and it just kind of blew my mind because of how closely that resonated with a lot of the music I was listening to already, like a lot of industrial music and a lot of metal, angsty teenager music stuff, and I hadn't heard any electronic music that was quite that moving. So it just caught me right in and just got all aboard and got all about it. So. And
said, this is it. It just clicked and.
That's it. That was pretty much game over at that point. I was by 16 years old, I think I had a website up where I was trying to get basically mixtapes up for people, like hosted online and like profiles and biographies and whatever else. And I was involved with some shows around town, like some warehouse ones and some after hour like club ones. And yeah, just kind of got involved and also stayed in the back corner a lot of time. Sure. Remember getting into clubs when I was like 17 years old, taking shots and just a bunch of ridiculous stuff that kids shouldn't be doing these days, but they do.
Yeah, that's what youth is for, right? How far from, what's the timeline from then to going, I'm going to be a part of a label?
Hadn't even really thought about it up until Matt and I had some conversations around 2013, I think. We just talked about it from time to time. And then I just started looking in what would need to be done for it and how to get linked into a bunch of different distribution channels or get linked into just like the greater population of how the music machine moves. And started, working those channels and trying to get integrated in different spots. And then working with a bunch of producers that I know and trying to get new artists on board and get some releases scheduled and really find people that were like-minded and start moving it. Like, I guess that's what it's always been about, is just finding like-minded people and moving forward.
So it's what I'm hearing is you have spent a lot of time facilitating, building, kind of being behind more than needing to be the face. So like, hey, check me out, check me out. Has that always been kind of how you are in life in general? Like
Yeah.
a facilitator, someone who makes things happen and just going, I want to push, not even push or promote somebody, but just enable. You like enabling and teaching. And
I do. I do like enabling. I've never been somebody that's like to be in like the spotlight. I like to just kind of work on the sides and have more meaningful relationships rather than like the flim and flam that comes along with doing XYZ. It's not really my style. Yeah, so it's always been about finding good people and sharing the journey with them. And like I said, that's why I wanted to work with Matt, and that's why I wanted to work with Paul, because they're both very like-minded on that. And I think even
you had that history.
What's that?
And you had that history from the other events, the artist stuff, and
Yep, from TCD&B and all that. And then Matt, just kind of an organic relationship through a mutual friend. And just finding like-minded people like yourself and Robbie T and Todd Buchler and whatnot, and it just kind of grown. So, but anyway, like the course of like getting to that point and figuring out when I want to do a drum bass label, it was about 2-3 years after the discussion started on when we actually executed it.
Okay. So it was, you guys weren't like, let's go today. And it does seem, it's funny because I thought it was just a very drum and bass thing. Just because, again, I spend most of my time when I am talking about music, about drum and bass and reading about it. But I have a buddy who's plays house music out of Atlanta, and he was like, does everybody have a label now? It's like, it seems because like, okay, I've got a WAV file and I'm going to get it, the trademark, and I'm going to sell it to a distributor who's going to put it online, or with getting back to Bandcamp. Yeah. It's facilitated avenues for a lot of creative people, but then it's also like, you get a label and you get a label and you get a label. I just can't help but think, what's your take on everyone having a label affecting the quality of the music?
Yeah,
does the music suffer because of it?
I think everybody's free to have their own label and go towards their dreams, but I think there are a lot of people that do pick it up and they just kind of don't fully commit or don't necessarily have done all the research to figure out what makes a recording great or what makes what you're trying to do great. Like, so I do think if you just go on like Juno or Beatport and you scroll through music, like pull up drum bass and pull up whatever else, you're going to come across so many releases where you like hear it and you're like, A, this isn't drum and bass. Like, how did this shit end up getting released on there?
Sure.
2, like, you'll find it where like it's ultra quiet, where you can tell somebody sent them a pre-master and they just released it as is unmastered. And it's like, there isn't much quality control out there. And that was, I think, one of the big focus on why we also wanted to start a label, is just kind of keep consistent quality across the board, and be consistent with what we're trying to do. But, I think a lot of people have really good intentions, but I don't necessarily think that everybody that is starting a label and going and releasing, understands how much time, energy, and money goes into trying to deliver a final product that is going to, go through the test of time. And if you scroll through Beatport or Juno, you really kind of see that. So long story short, I think it is a little saturated.
Yeah. And, and some of, like you're saying, the people who don't understand what happens or what it all takes, you're going to have that ebb and flow, and there's going to be people who are going to fall off. I'm just trying to think of all the conversations I've had with either people who are a little bit younger or from a different culture, and saying, now the middleman is out of the way because there isn't that same dub plate culture. But it was funny because, if you look at the original outside of the sound clash, like when you're starting this new genre and you're going to invest how much money in mastering, artwork, production of vinyl, shipping of vinyl, you had to make sure that it was a song that people wanted to buy.
Yep.
And so you would give it to the top DJs. It wasn't, there was a certain gatekeeper, there was a coolness factor to it, but for a lot of labels, it was like, cut the dubs, give it to people, and if it gets the rewinds, or if it gets the, you can watch people's reaction. Likes don't necessarily translate into buys.
Right.
And they also, in the past, you were selling vinyl and you were making drum and bass, signing tracks and putting them out for other DJs to buy. There
Yep.
wasn't a vinyl collecting like there was in other music genres, like 7 inches or 10 inches or special editions. It was you were buying vinyl for a disc jockey to play for a crowd, which heard it once, and maybe there was a mixtape later. And now it's, I got a song, anyone can buy it. I can master it by putting it at minus 6 dBs and sending it to a $50 plugin that's going to basically just cram a limiter on it. Oh, look, and now I'm a musician.
And
You don't have that quality.
To even add on to that, it was really hand in hand with a lot of writers too from different, magazines or whatever outlet, and just marketing force behind it. Whereas now the standards to have any music marketed, if it's, a more underground genre like drum and bass, they don't necessarily want to touch you. It's really difficult to get the attention or get people to not necessarily write for you, but to like really help market your music. They want you to have like a year of releases lined up and then, thousands of dollars dumped on, and you don't even know if the payoff is going to be worth it these days. So yeah, things are a little bit more accessible, and maybe that's why it's so difficult for people to identify with what you should be buying now and how easy it is just go and buy it. Like it's really hard to get for everything to get buried.
True. It's true. And there's so much of it. Like it's not even like it's, not only do you have to do the marketing, but then you have this sheer volume, and you can't promote it all, and it's interesting. Like you see some of these online labels, and it's like, how are you keeping up? How are you paying for that mastering?
Yeah.
For quality, like you're saying, it comes to the quality, like, and then you're selling 20, 30 downloads at 99 cents, which means you're walking with maybe 30 cents after fees and licensing lists and royalties. Like, and how is this happening? And how do we expect quality to come out of it when it's okay? Let me stop this because it makes me want to think something else. So I don't want to get too much into my personal beliefs about people who play 60 songs in 60 minutes, because that's a whole other debate about why are you playing something where you only want to play 10 seconds of it. But anyway, it's true. But it's like, I can't help but wonder, like, labels don't want their music to be disposable and they want the support, but that they're pumping out so much music that their supporter, who, like, I may like label X, Y, and Z. X, Y, and Z puts out 10 songs a month. Am I going to buy 120 songs a month or 120 songs a year from a label? Can I actually give them the support that they need?
Yeah.
Like, how many of these labels have the support outside of maybe Hospital or Ram or, Heads or Dispatch, like, that can have the fan base that someone's going to buy every single thing that comes out? Like, they have to be hemorrhaging money, I would think.
Yeah. I mean, I can just tell you from our standpoint, it's like I said, it's always an uphill battle, and it's really just kind of like the fruit of love, or whatever the saying is, just really wanting to make it happen. And yeah, man, I don't know, like some of the labels that are releasing stuff every single week, mastered and whatnot, like that's crazy to me. That's crazy talk.
52 releases a year.
You get somebody to play it for 10 seconds on the dance floor and call it a day.
And then we wonder why our culture is dying.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing, we're not doing, it's kind of like fast food. We feed everyone fast food, and we wonder why we're so unhealthy in this country.
Yep.
It's the same thing. Instead of having, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying if there's quality and if the things are good and if you can afford it. I mean, I'm not the gatekeeper. It's not for me to judge. But it's like, I remember, and it's not I'm old and this is how it used to be. No, I'm all for it if it makes sense, as long as it doesn't hurt the culture that holds so close. So so with that, what's next for Seminal Sounds? Is it going to stay the course? Is there a new idea? Is it just the keep going? Where do you see over the next, say, 6 to 18 months the label going?
Next 6 to 18 months, we've got some exciting releases coming together right now. We've got some really fun stuff in the mix. Foresee another remix EP, some awesome guest remixes or involvement. We've got a few releases getting lined up. I know Todd Buchler's got some in the heater that he sent over. I know you're working on some fancy stuff. Just spoke with my boys, Northern Barrier, the other day. I know Mike's focusing on some stuff. I got to connect with Hammers. So I know a lot of people.
Yeah, he's coming back now. Finally, he took a little time off, and some of the stuff he said is like.
I'm really happy to see him come on and post up sound waves. He sent that to me. I don't know.
Shouts to Curtis.
Yep, shout out to Curtis. He sent that over like a year ago, and I loved the track, but I just couldn't make it fit for release. Just with the overall picture of everything, and I'm really glad to see that getting some attention. I'm glad Curtis is back.
And I'm going to jump in as a friend, as a fan, and as a just say, when we're talking about labels and whatnot, like that's one thing I've always, since I've learned more about it through talking to you and other guys on the label, the fact that Seminal Sounds isn't afraid to take something they know is good, they know deserves to come out, and has the discipline to go, but not yet. It's just not right. It's right for us. We know it's going to be good, but because I know there's been a few releases and some upcoming releases that have been sat on, have worked, kind of waited until it was right. And I just think that kind of dedication to the craft and the sound and the shape of the label it's just not found. So as a creator, I think that's one thing that a lot of people don't understand is, because we've gotten to this culture where I've got a tune, it's finished, it's either a free download or it has to get signed or it's rubbish, and I'm not going to play it in 6 months. It's like,
a good example, like I think we've talked before, is Robbie T. X-Ray. We sat on that track for 3 years before releasing it. Like, it was mastered and ready to go, and we just played it out live. Got sent to a few people ahead of time, got played out live. A bunch of music. I mean, myself, I think I have like 6 tracks wrapped up pretty much that I've just been sitting on for a few months, and I come and I revisit after a few weeks until I start forgetting about it a little bit, losing that familiarity with it, and then go back and listen so I can take a real objective, analysis of it. And the same with just like how we curate our releases, that right there, it's more of a curation. It's about thinking about how everything lines up and who's releasing what and when, and just seeing and hearing how all the pieces fit together. So that's really what kind of the goal is, and telling the story, I guess, with our label. So.
Another follow-up question about the label. What do you and the other folks on the label look for when it comes to new artists, new sounds? What is it that makes you go, that person has something, I want to know more about it? Do you find you get a lot of submissions and you're like, man, we got 100 tracks and these 5 are really good? Or do you usually find it's just through the course of listening to music and being involved that someone goes, you should check this guy out, or you should check that guy out? Or
there are a few different things. One, like, is it something new? Yes, I want to hear people taking risks. I want to hear people not just trying to do cookie cutter drum bass, like, hey, I made another roller or whatever else, and like, boom, here it is.
Another roller part.
Yeah. No, rollers are great. I love them, but like, if you're just making kind of a cookie cutter tune with like the same old loops over and over, like, it doesn't really invoke a reaction, I guess, for myself. It's cool for that, 40 seconds on the dance floor in a lot of cases, but I guess I look for music that's a little bit more thoughtful and doesn't necessarily fit any particular puzzle, and something that is going to be memorable, where if you listen to it, a few months down the road, you can go back and be like, yeah, I haven't really heard anything like this before. Sure, there are some tracks that get released that are, maybe a little resonant of more popular drum and bass and whatnot. Every once in a while, you got to do that, but
and it's not bad. I mean, a good tune, good work of art is still good, but it doesn't have to be the driving force. I mean,
time and place.
Yeah, and I think a great example of that was the last or the next to last, the most recent or the second to most recent Everything Changes release.
Oh yeah.
There wasn't from the way I approach it when I'm mixing records or files, that release didn't fit into the normal structure of what you would do, like, 49 bars in, and then
Yeah.
8-bar breakdown, then a drop, and then 64 bars, and then it was just this. Actually, all of Rob's stuff is kind of like that. It just kind
Rob
of
and Todd.
builds and goes, and it's like, but it doesn't fit into the mold of the characteristic release. But yet it's still. Well, did that get played in the 30s, the high 30s? Again, it's all relative, but I mean it. But what that says is that even if it did get, even the number 30, it means that enough people saw that and was like, oh,
Yeah.
that's good. And it didn't have to fit into a mold to be successful.
Nope.
It just had to be well done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think Rob and Todd both drew inspiration from where they needed to, and they put something out there that demanded attention. And I mean, that got quite a bit of attention. And I think that music and the way that they're doing Everything Changes goes along with exactly every single Everything Changes release changes.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like this evolving force, and it's great seeing Todd and Rob work together and just try out new ideas and just constantly evolving. So
do you know where they came up with that name?
I mean, everything changes. Everything changes.
It just happens that, again, I don't know if it's a coincidence, but I was reading a book, pretty well-known book, when this whole mess started, quarantine mess, and one of the big quotes in the book is, "Hey man, everything changes." And I'm like, I wonder if that's where they took it from. So I just didn't know if it was.
I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know the exact roots of it. I just know it was kind of a saying, like, everything changes. I know those guys are a lot more cryptic in that when it comes to what they do and what they're putting out there. So I don't know. We'll let the mystery lie on that. Maybe someday we'll all find out.
I'm looking at my questions here, and I'm like, what haven't I asked? Because most of these, even if I haven't asked, it's been answered. So where can people keep up with Seminal Sounds? And I'll list this in the comments and.
Oh yeah.
But where do you want people to check out to learn more or be more active?
I am really a fan of Spotify. I really enjoy what Spotify is doing and how they enable artists and different entities to come together and build playlists and showcase their music. So I really appreciate Spotify, and I also really appreciate Bandcamp. I think those are two companies that are trying to do the right thing just for musicians and try to give the right attention to artists that they deserve. So I would say seminalsounds.bandcamp.com, and we've got another fun playlist on Spotify that is known as SMNL.
Okay.
So if you do a search for that, that'll pop up with all of our releases, and soon to be more even added onto there.
Yeah, so. And all those releases are also added to, or at least up to a certain point, all those recent releases are also on the I Love D&B playlist. Is that still going on? I didn't really ever play that playlist, but I didn't want to put out the wrong information.
Still goes on. Like, that's another thing I really appreciate, and I'm really happy to have been able to be a part of that when it kicked off. They got a massive following to it. DJ Fresh and a few other well-known folks out of London or England, wherever, put that together. And like, there's a lot of different music, people that deserve exposure, people that are underexposed, and just really grassroots kind of drum and bass movement, and getting everybody on the same page and being able to showcase what you got. So really appreciate that. Then there's DJ Fresh's Bass 101. Keep an eye out on other podcasts across the internet for where we might pop up. So yeah, just kind of comes and goes and plugs in and ebbs and flows.
Sure. That's all. Oh, I forgot. Yeah, big up to Curtis and Nervosa. I got my Nervosa shirt on today. I forgot that's what I put on. I just thought it was another black T-shirt. And I'm like, oh, wait, no,
no, that's the Nervosa one.
Yeah, nice. How about that? All right.
You got to get Curtis on here. You got to get Mr. Hammers on here.
I am. I'm going to try and eventually I want to get the whole crew, one form or another, on, because I'll probably be working, because I know I did the thing with Curtis on set. Me and Todd are working on some stuff. Cool. Me and Rob talked about doing some stuff, and then the other folks are like, hey, we got some stuff to send. I'm like, it's going to be a good year.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
maybe one
got
day
some
we'll
fun
all
stuff.
be in the same place when they allow humans in the same room.
Got to make it happen. Having Todd and Joe and Dave Owen come out here last fall was a magical experience. And every time I go out to New York, I try to connect with Todd, and Joe's around. I'd love to see him, but never been out to your neck of the woods. So maybe
I'm only an hour and a half outside from Todd.
Yeah.
So once this all happens or gets over with, we'll have to make hell, if nothing else, honestly, hey, just dinner. I'll take dinner.
Oh yeah.
Then, but I mean, if we can do something else, cool. But
all about it.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Englund, thank you for stopping by the Vast Parlor, talk about Seminal Sounds and drum and bass and your take on it. And I appreciate it. And yeah, I guess I'll
Good
talk to you.
man.
Yeah, I'll talk to you soon. And I'm guessing that this, because I've done all the audio tests, this is actually going to come out and we can use this one. It won't
Excellent.
sound like we're talking in tin cans like the last one. But, man, that was fun because that was such a good show.
Yeah.
That was such a good not that this wasn't. Not that this wasn't.
Hey.
It wasn't. I'm not saying it wasn't. It was not that. I'm just saying it was that one. It was so great because it was just such a great talk that and I'm like,
yeah. It was like hour-long chat, just kicking shit.
Well, this one's at 48 minutes. So
what?
Yeah.
Almost there.
Yeah.
Almost
so
there.
We still talked. We still got our gab on. So all right. So go check out that guy and his label and everything else, and we'll check you soon here on the Vast Parlor. Peace. Bye.